Story 1. The Hitchhiker of Hackberry, 2014. Ethan Caldwell had driven the Hackberry stretch of Route 66 so many times he could have run it blindfolded. 28 years on the Southwest line had given him a sixth sense for every dip, bend, and phantom mirage on the asphalt. But on the night of 18th December 2014, 28 degrees Fahrenheit and falling, nothing felt familiar. A winter storm had just passed, leaving thin sheets of water streaking across the blacktop like veins of glass. The wipers slapped rhythmically, clearing the last remnants of freezing drizzle. His cab heater was running full blast, struggling to push back the desert cold. Ethan sipped lukewarm diner coffee from a cracked thermos when he saw him. A man. Standing in the middle of the lane. Not beside the road. Not flagging from a shoulder. Dead center. Ethan slammed the brake. Tires shrieked across slick asphalt, the trailer fishtailing before settling. His heart pounded. But what rattled him wasn't the near collision. It was the fact that the man was already at his passenger side window, without ever having walked there. The stranger's face hovered inches from the glass. His clothes were wrong for the century, an old denim jacket, brass buttons dulled with age, collar turned sharply like something from the 1920s. His hair was neatly combed, but too dark, as if shadow clung to it. And he wasn't wet. Not a drop, despite the storm. No breath fogged the window either, even in the killing cold. Ethan swallowed, cracked the window down an inch. "You all right, buddy?" The man didn't answer. He didn't even blink. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if studying Ethan's voice rather than the words. Something in Ethan's instincts snapped, the same primal feeling he got the first time he saw a rattlesnake coil beneath loose tarp. He unlocked the passenger door anyway, because the desert had unwritten rules: you didn't leave someone stranded at night. The man opened the door and slid in with stiff, deliberate movements, like a puppet guided by unseen strings. No seat creak. No breath. Just the faint smell of cold iron. Ethan tried to act normal. "I'm headed to Kingman. I can drop you." The man finally spoke, his voice a whisper like sand rubbing against sand. "They paved over me, but I'm still here." Ethan froze. And that was when he noticed the fuel gauge. It had been at 3/4 only 15 minutes before. Now the needle slid past half. Then a quarter. It was draining like a bathtub. "What the?" Ethan leaned forward, tapping the gauge. The needle plunged toward empty with unnatural speed. 18 miles had passed. His engine should have been purring. Instead, he felt the temperature drop. The heater blew hot air, but the cabin grew colder. 20 degrees. 10. 0. -10. His breath fogged heavily now. The strangers did not. Ethan forced himself to look, to really look. The man's hand rested on the seat. No. Through the seat. His fingers sunk through the vinyl padding as if it weren't there. Ethan's chest tightened. Panic pressed against his ribs like a fist. Are you real?" he whispered before he could stop himself. The man didn't respond. At mile marker 71, the stranger turned his head with unnatural speed, his joints bending sharply like cracking eyes. His eyes weren't eyes anymore. Just black pits. Depthless. Starless. His mouth stretched open, far too far, widening until the jaw unhinged like a snake. And when he spoke again, the voice was Ethan's. Perfectly mimicked. Perfect pitch. "You should have kept driving." The engine sputtered. Once. Twice. Then died completely. The headlights snapped off. The dash lights vanished. The heater stopped. Total blackness swallowed the cab. Not night. Not shadow. Something deeper. Ethan sat frozen, breath ragged, unable to see his own hands. His heart hammered so violently the silence felt oppressive, until a new sound broke it. Click. 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 Footsteps. Inside the cab. Someone walking slowly across the floor, cowboy boots, the kind worn in old westerns, heel first, then toe. But the seat beside him was empty. Ethan knew it without seeing. The presence wasn't beside him anymore. It was moving. Click. Click. Closer. Ethan's fingers fumbled for the ignition out of instinct, though he knew the key would do nothing. His breath fogged violently, each exhale crackling like shattered glass. Then, the lights flickered back on. Just like that. The engine purred softly, calm as a summer afternoon. Ethan jerked upright, scanning the cab. The passenger seat was empty. Pristine. Except for the ice. A thick patch, 3 inches, maybe more, covered the leather where the stranger had sat. Perfectly shaped to the outline of a human body, frost creeping outward like veins. Ethan reached out with trembling fingers. The ice hissed beneath his touch. He yanked his hand back, shaking. The cab warmed immediately, as if nothing had been wrong. The fuel gauge returned to 3/4, perfectly steady. The heater hummed, pushing warm air around him. Like none of it happened. But the seat was still frozen. Ethan gripped the wheel. He drove the remaining miles to Kingman in rigid silence, checking the passenger seat every 30 seconds. The ice never melted. And on nights when the desert dips below freezing, Ethan still swears he can hear footsteps in the cab, slow, wandering, like someone looking for a place that once existed beneath the asphalt. Someone who never left. Someone still standing in the middle of the road. Story 2, The Silent Convoy, 2018. Riley Harper had driven through ghost towns before, but Glenrio, right on the Texas-New Mexico border, was something else. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. Frozen halfway between two breaths. Even the old Route 66 cafe sign seemed to hold its rusted blink for too long before dimming again. At 1:27 a.m., the moon hung low and almost unnaturally bright. Riley preferred night driving, less traffic, more focus, but Glenrio's empty windows followed her like eyes. She kept her speed steady at 48 miles per hour, both hands on the wheel. Then the world went silent. Not quite silent. The hum of the truck tires dissolved. The faint rattle of cargo straps muted. Even the whisper of wind between cracked door seals vanished like someone clicked mute on reality. That was when the lights appeared. 8 pairs of headlights, aligned perfectly, materialized on the horizon. Not approaching, revealing themselves, one by one, in a straight line across the eastern side of the highway. "Where the hell did you come from?" Riley whispered. She looked at her mirrors, clear. Looked ahead, the desert stretched empty. Then she looked back at the approaching convoy. Every instinct told her these vehicles shouldn't exist. They glided closer, headlights pale yellow like old tungsten bulbs, the beams flickering slightly as though running on antique wiring. Riley slowed her truck, letting them pass. When the first vehicle drew parallel, her breath caught. It was an old freight hauler from the 1950s, exact model she couldn't name, but definitely something that belonged in a museum. The paint was sandblasted to bare metal, but somehow the shape remained crisp, untouched by age. And the driver. His face looked carved from vine-scraped stone. Skin blistered and peeled like someone had spent 70 years sanded by desert storms. His eyes were bright, too bright, and he smiled at her with perfect teeth, as if delighted she could see him. But the worst detail wasn't the man. The truck wasn't on the road. It hovered 4 inches above it. Not floating visibly, just wrong. Like the wheels belonged to another road beneath the pavement. Riley looked closer and understood. These trucks were driving on the old Route 66. The one buried under the modern asphalt. The second truck passed. Then the third. Each identical. Each silent. No engine rumble. No brake squeak. No wind. Just ghostly tungsten glow washing over her cab. Riley reached for her phone, instincts screaming at her to record this. But the moment the camera app opened, the screen glitched into white letters on black. Don't follow US. Her heart skipped a beat. What? I'm not. The screen went black again. She dropped the phone onto the passenger seat, pulse pounding. The seventh truck glided by. Then the eighth. The convoy faded into the distance, or should have. Instead, their headlights stayed visible in her mirror long after they should have vanished behind the curve of the road. Riley sped up. Hard. The mirror still showed them. All 8 sets of lights, maintaining perfect formation. Her stomach tightened. No, 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 you are gone. You are gone. She flicked the mirror upward to avoid seeing them, but the lights appeared in the corner of the windshield reflection instead, faint and steady, like afterimages burned into the glass. The speedometer climbed. 55 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour. 67 miles per hour. She kept her eyes locked forward, refusing to give the convoy even a glance. The desert shifted color as dawn approached, the horizon gaining the faintest hint of blue. When she finally dared to look again, the road behind her was empty. Relief rushed through her chest so sharply she almost cried. She let her speed drop and rubbed her face with both hands. Just keep going, she whispered to herself. Don't stop. Don't think. Don't. Then she saw the tire tracks. Miles later, where the pavement fractured into gravel, the sun finally rose enough for her headlights to shut off. Riley glanced out the window and saw her truck's tire marks cutting through the sand beside the highway. But there were others. 8 parallel sets of tire tracks. Perfectly aligned. Perfectly spaced. Perfectly preserved in the morning dust. They ran beside her track for at least a mile before fading abruptly into nothing, as if the old road had rejoined the new, swallowing the convoy back into its buried path. Riley slowed to a crawl, staring at the tracks until tears blurred her vision. She put the truck into park and stumbled out, hands trembling violently. The desert air was warm now, but her breath still condensed in pale puffs. She knelt, touching one of the phantom tracks. Cold. Freezing cold. Colder than the night had ever been. Riley jerked her hand back. The patch of sand glittered with frost that melted instantly under the rising sun. Behind her, something shifted. A faint vibration in the ground. A distant rumble. She turned slowly. Far down the highway, almost invisible in the heat shimmer, she thought she saw 8 faint points of yellow light. Then they blinked out. Riley ran back to the truck, slammed the door, and floored the accelerator. She never told anyone about Glenrio. But she avoids the border stretch now. She reroutes 3 hours out of her way every trip. And sometimes, when she checks her mirror at night, she sees a flicker of pale tungsten glow, 8 pairs, lined up perfectly, following just a little too far back to turn and confirm. Like they're waiting for her to make the mistake they warned her about. To follow. Story 3, Vanished, 2007. Travis Boone had made the Texola run so many times he didn't bother checking the map anymore. The Oklahoma border was familiar, flat land, distant lights, and long stretches where the radio crackled with nothing but static. He liked that quiet. It made him feel alone in a good way. On the night of 4th June 2007, he called home at 10:49 p.m. sharp, like always. His wife joked about his predictable schedule. His youngest son said goodnight twice. Travis promised he'd bring back that silly dinosaur hat from the truck stop. At 10:51 p.m., the GPS froze. At 10:52, it went black. He tapped the screen, confused. Come on, not tonight. The truck's headlights dimmed for half a second, then returned. The road didn't. The surroundings looked wrong. The asphalt lost its reflective shine, turning mate and dusty, like an unmaintained highway from decades earlier. The center line faded as if erased by time. Frowning, Travis pulled to the shoulder. The engine idled normally, but the stillness outside didn't feel like the open plain. It felt contained, like the air had thickened around him. He tried the radio. Static. He tried the phone. No signal. Then he heard it. A soft tap on the driver's side window. He looked. Nothing. He waited another second. Tap. This time it came from the passenger side. Travis swallowed hard. All right, who's messing with me? His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating only empty roadside weeds and cracked pavement. No movement. No tracks. He leaned back into the cab, but froze. His side mirror showed a figure standing behind the trailer. A man. Or the shape of one. Travis twisted in his seat, heart pounding. Nothing there. The road was empty. The mirror shouldn't have lied. He felt an icy pressure in his chest as he grabbed his phone and hit record, more out of instinct than reason. His voice shook as he whispered, "If anyone finds this, I'm on 66 near Texola," and the headlights dimmed again, then died completely. Darkness filled the cab, heavy, smothering, almost tactile. Travis couldn't even see the windshield. His breath fogged the air though the night wasn't cold. Behind him, gravel shifted. Slow, deliberate steps. Travis trembled. Who's there? His flashlight flickered violently. This isn't funny. Then, a hand curled over the back of the passenger seat. Travis didn't see a body or a face, just the hand. Wrongly shaped, too long, fingers bent at slight angles like they'd been set incorrectly. The light finally stabilized, and the seat behind the hand came into view. He dropped the flashlight. Because in the beam, sitting in the passenger seat, was Travis Boone. Same face, same jacket, same patched cap. Except this version of him didn't move. Didn't breathe. Its head was tilted slightly toward him, like a photograph propped up on a too stiff neck. No, Travis whispered. No, no, no. The other Travis opened its mouth. But there was no voice. No breath. Just blackness inside, deep and endless. Travis fell back against the driver's door, scrambling for the handle, but his fingers numbed instantly, like someone had plunged his hands into ice water. The duplicate lifted one hand, slow, mechanical, and pointed toward the windshield. The headlights erupted to life. And standing directly in front of the truck was the same figure from the mirror, featureless, unmoving, wearing Travis' clothes down to the grease stain on the knee. Except the face had nothing. A blank oval, smooth skin, no eyes, no nose. Just the faintest suggestion of where features should be, like a clay model unfinished. Travis screamed. He didn't remember hitting the door hard enough to bruise his shoulder, or falling onto the asphalt, or grabbing the phone again. He only remembered running. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs blurred into numb muscle memory, until the figure vanished behind the fog swallowing the old highway. 3 days later, the sheriff's department found his rig idling in a field 10 miles from where his GPS last pinged. The headlights were on. The driver's door was open. The cab was empty. There were no footprints except Travis leading away from the road, stopping abruptly in the tall grass. As if he'd been lifted straight upward. What they did find was his driver's log, lying face up in the center of the field. The last entry, still ink-wet despite the weather, read, "It's not human. It's wearing my uniform." The phone turned up later, 12 miles south, laying on a gravel turnoff. no cracks, no dirt. And one video remained. 4 seconds long. The light was dim, but Travis' face was unmistakable. Pale, trembling, reflective with sweat. He whispered, choked and terrified. "If you see this, don't look for me." The camera jostled, catching motion behind him. There, standing perfectly still, was another Travis Boone. Same jacket. Same cap. Same posture. Only the face was completely smooth, like a mask unmolded. The video cut abruptly. Investigators ruled it as wandered off, heat stroke, disorientation. His wife never believed that. She still keeps the video on a locked USB drive buried in her dresser drawer. And every once in a while, on nights when the house gets too quiet, she swears she hears footsteps in the hallway. Measured, deliberate, matching her husband's work boots exactly. But when she checks, no one is there. And sometimes, in the dark reflection of the kitchen window, she sees a shape behind her, shoulder to shoulder height with her husband, but with a face that isn't finished yet. Story 4. The Static Man, 2016. Logan Rice had driven through McCarty's, New Mexico, more times than he could count. The stretch was dull, flat, and black as coal after midnight, good for thinking, bad for staying awake. He usually blasted old rock stations to keep himself alert, but at 2:14 a.m. on 9th April 2016, every station fist into the same thing. Static. Thin, dry, electric static. He slapped the radio. "Come on, don't do this to me." For a moment, the static deepened, shifting into a hollow warble, like an old battlefield broadcast. Logan caught fragments he couldn't place. Cracking syllables. A low chant. A brief burst of something that sounded like distant screaming. Then, silence. He gripped the wheel, uneasy. Damn desert plays tricks on you. The road curved gently, revealing a long, empty mile ahead. But halfway down it was a shape. A tall one. Logan leaned forward, squinting. The headlights flickered over the figure, sharpening its outline. A man stood directly in the center of the lane. Not quite solid. Not quite present. His entire body shimmered, grainy, shifting, like he was made of old TV static. Jesus, Logan slammed the brakes. The trailer lurched, tires screaming on warm asphalt. The cab shuddered and fishtailed before snapping straight. Logan's pulse hammered against his temples. But the figure didn't move. It stood motionless, taller than the truck cab, its entire form rippling with grayscale noise. Where a face should have been, there was only a shifting hedge, lines and distortions, like an antenna struggling for signal. Logan whispered, "No. No, no, no." The static man lifted an arm. Not fluidly. Not naturally. It jerked upward in sharp, glitching angles, 3 separate movements happening out of order, like a corrupted video file skipping frames. Then it stepped forward. Logan locked his doors and threw the truck into reverse, but the moment he did, the creature dissolved. Not vanished, dissolved into a cloud of black and white insects that bust like television snow. They poured across the hood, into the vents, into every seam of the cab. The buzzing rose into a shrill, high-pitched whine. "No, no, get out." Logan slapped at his sleeves as the swarm crawled across his jacket, but his hands passed right through them. They weren't insects. They weren't anything. They flickered, phasing in and out of existence as if trapped between channels. The lights inside the cab strobed erratically. In a single violent burst, the swarm converged on the passenger seat, swirling into the shape of a man again. The static man sat upright now, head tilted toward Logan. Not breathing. Not blinking. Just glitching. His entire body flickered between 100 different poses per second, leaning forward, leaning back, arms at sides, arms crossed, like every version of him was playing at once. Then the radio turned itself on. Not to music. To a voice. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, layered over each other in static-soaked agony. Logan felt his throat tighten. "Get out of my truck." The static man didn't obey. Instead, its head twisted impossibly far, rotating until the static pattern formed something like a face. Hundreds of smaller faces, all screaming silently. Each one appeared for a fraction of a second. Farmers. Soldiers. Women with 1950s hairstyles. Children with hollow eyes. Brief flashes of entire lives, entire deaths, flickering in and out during the blink of an eye. The voices wove into a new pattern, rapid pulses of Navajo, broken war reports, guttural whispers that had no language at all. The truck engine cut off. The headlights died. The cab went dark. Except for the static man, who glowed faintly, illuminating the interior with cold monochrome light. Logan couldn't breathe. He felt the air thicken like ungrounded electricity, the taste of metal rising in the back of his throat. Then the creature leaned closer. Static deepened. The voices overlapped into a row. And suddenly Logan understood. It wasn't trying to communicate. It was trying to transmit. The creature pressed one hand, if it could be called a hand, against the windshield. The glass crackled, spider webbing outward from its palm. Not like normal cracks. Each fissure formed perfect right angles, geometric, unnatural, like a glitch breaking through physical matter. The sound was deafening. The handprint burned itself into the glass from the inside, embossed like a reversed imprint. Logan screamed. He wasn't sure when he threw open the driver's door, or how he managed to stumble out, but he ran, blindly, into the desert. The static roar followed him for nearly half a mile before fading abruptly, cut off as if someone yanked the power cable from the world. When Logan returned with state troopers at Sunrise, the truck was still there. Idling. Doors shut. Keys inside. The only sign something had happened. The windshield. Pressed into the inside surface, perfect and unmistakable, was a handprint, twice the size of a normal human's, with geometric cracks radiating from it, like the glass had been rewritten rather than broken. Logan quit long-haul driving 6 weeks later. He bought a small house near Golub, kept his curtains closed, and refused to keep a TV in the home. Not even a cell phone with a screen. He said screens made him nervous. He said sometimes, late at night, he heard static humming from nowhere. He said he hadn't driven past McCarty's since. He said the cracks in his windshield still show up in his dreams. And sometimes he swears he sees a tall shape in the yard. Just standing there. Shifting. Waiting. A figure made of snow and dead air, flickering at the edge of his eyes. Trying to tune him back in. Story 5, The Phantom Way Station, 2012. Brooke Sullivan never trusted way stations. Too many rules, too many board officers with nothing better to do than nitpick bolts and brake pads. But the Mojave Desert stretch, miles of empty sand between forgotten exits, usually didn't have one open at night. On 2nd June 2012, a little after 11:40 p.m., she saw one anyway. Bright. Active. Fully lit like a football stadium. Brooke squinted through the windshield. No way that's real. There's nothing out here. But the neon open sign glowed steady. The building stood there as if it had been constructed an hour ago. Clean white walls, brand new floodlights, a digital reader board scrolling midnight inspection in umber letters. Not a hint of dust even though the wind kicked sand across the road. Brooke slowed. Regulations meant she couldn't pass a station that claimed to be operating, even if everything felt wrong. She pulled onto the ramp. The truck rumbled across the scale pad. The digital display ticked up accurately. No flicker, no delay. A door opened. A man stepped out. Uniformed CHP officer. High visibility vest. Clipboard. But something subtle was off. His face was too smooth. Too shadowed. Even under bright floodlights, she couldn't make out eye color. Just a glossy black sheen, like sunglasses without frames. He approached slowly and tapped the side of her cab with a knuckle. Brooke rolled down the window halfway. "Evening, officer." He didn't respond. He simply said, flatly, "Secondary inspection." "Open the cargo hold." Brooke hesitated. "What's the issue?" "Trailers sealed." The officer tilted his head, as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. "Open the cargo hold." His tone never changed. No inflection. No irritation. No human cadence. Brooke climbed down, breath thick in the desert heat. She walked to the trailer, unlocked the latch, and pulled the door open. Freezing air burst outward. Brooke stepped back, startled. Her cargo was frozen goods, but the cold rolling out was Arctic, fog billowing like steam from an industrial freezer. Then the fog shifted. Shapes formed inside it. Rows of figures. Sitting. Still. Perfectly aligned like bus passengers waiting for departure. Brooke's pulse hammered. She blinked hard. As the fog thinned, she saw them more clearly. Passengers. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, still wearing travel clothes from the 1950s. Their skin was pale blue-white from decades of cold. Frost feathered their eyebrows. Their eyes were wide open, glassy and unblinking. They were seated exactly like a bus layout. A long-lost Greyhound line Brooks had seen in old photos. There had been an accident in 1956. A wreck in a storm. Bodies buried in a mass grave somewhere near the Mojave. Not on her truck. Not sitting upright. Not watching her. Brooke stumbled back. "No. No, no way." The officer behind her said, "Proceed to secondary inspection." His voice echoed unnaturally, as if the sound originated inside her head, not behind her. Brooke turned. Two more officers stood beside him now. Same uniforms. Same glossy black eyes. Same too smooth faces. They flanked her silently. The first officer raised a gloved hand and gestured her toward the station building. Brooke didn't move. What's wrong with you people?" He repeated. "Secondary inspection." All three voices overlapped perfectly, the same monotone layered into a single note. Brooke's nerves snapped. She bolted toward her cab. The officers didn't chase. But the lights changed. Every floodlight in the station intensified to blinding white. Shadows vanished. The desert around her dissolved into washed-out haze. The world shrank to the radius of the way station. Brooke stumbled into the cab. She jammed the key into the ignition. The truck's dashboard clock caught her eye. 11:41 p.m. Only 1 minute had passed. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder, alert after alert, like time was trying to catch up with her. She started the engine. The trailer door was still open, but Brooke didn't care. She floored the accelerator, swinging the rig off the pad. The way station lights cut out instantly. From blazing daylight to pitch-black desert. She drove blindly for several seconds before her vision adjusted. There was nothing behind her. No building. No lights. No road ramp. No digital display. Just empty Mojave sand, moonlit and silent. Brooke slowed, trembling violently. Her breath came shallow, rapid. The station had vanished. Completely. She turned on her hazard lights and checked her mirrors. Behind her, in the swirling dust, something lay on the ground near the path where the station had been. A metal box. Rectangular. rusted. Brooke climbed down, walked toward it with shaking legs. It was a weighscale. An old one, rusted through, cracked glass, stamped with a manufacturing date. 1973. The station she saw had been pristine. This one looked like it had been abandoned 40 years ago. Brooke touched it. The metal was freezing cold. A sudden gust of wind blew sand across the desert floor. When the dust settled, Brooke saw faint impressions in the dirt around her boots. Footprints. 3 sets. CHP boot treads, but deeper than normal. Pressed too evenly. Like they weren't made by weight, but by shape pressing into the world without actually touching it. Brooke dropped the scale and ran back to her truck, slamming the door shut. She didn't stop driving until she hit Barstow. And even then, she sat in the cab for 20 minutes before daring to step outside. She took her rig to inspection the next morning. Everything checked out. Perfect. Except the freezer unit temperature log. It recorded a sudden drop to 240 F at 11:41 p.m. Impossible, but real. Every sensor caught it. Brooke quit driving at night for the next 2 years. And though she never saw that way station again, the frost marks on her trailer door, finger-length streaks shaped like seated passengers, never washed off. Not with heat. Not with scrubbing. Not with time. Some stains were burned in colder than ice. Story 6, The Lights of Oatman, 2015. Mason Carter never liked Sid Greaves Pass. The mountain curves were too tight, the drop-offs too deep, and the wind too unpredictable. Even after 12 years of long-haul work, the Arizona cliffs still made his stomach lurch. But on 18th May 2015, it wasn't the cliffs that scared him. It was the lights. He was making the night run toward Oatman, the ghost town famous for burros and tourists, neither of which were out at 1:08 a.m. The desert was blue-black, stars scattered like salt across the sky. His CB remained dead quiet on channel 19. Then the engine stuttered. Just once. A hiccup. Mason frowned. Don't you start tonight. The headlights dimmed. Then brightened. Then dimmed again. He tapped the dash. The road ahead pulsed with faint illumination. Not from him. From something else. Small orbs. 1. Then 5. Then dozens. Floating low along the cliffs, weaving through the air like drifting embers. But they weren't orange. They were a cold, milky white. Mason slowed, eyes wide. What the hell? The spheres, each the size of a baseball, rose toward him. Not random. Not scattered. Coordinated. They swirled around the hood, gliding so close he could nearly touch them through the windshield. The beams of his headlights bent strangely around them, as though the orbs were bending the light itself. The temperature inside the cab dropped sharply. Mason's breath fogged. Nope. No, we are not doing this tonight. He reached for the radio. Before his fingers touched the mic, a different voice spoke through the CB. A child's giggle. Not static. Not interference. A clear, bright giggle. A little girl's. Mason froze. Another giggle came. Higher pitched. Closer. The orbs multiplied, gathering into a glowing tunnel of light around the truck as he crawled uphill. The world outside disappeared into white haze. Only the illuminated walls of drifting spheres remained. One orb drifted to the windshield. Except it wasn't a sphere anymore. Inside it, vaguely visible, as if behind frosted glass, was the silhouette of a small girl wearing a 1940s-style dress. Curled hair. Pale arms. Her head tilted unnaturally far to the side. Then the light dimmed enough for Mason to see the details. Her mouth was sewn shut with what looked like thin lines of dark wire. A hand pressed to the inside of the glowing orb. A small palm. A child's fingers. A stuttering flicker of movement. She was pointing. Pointing down the cliff. "No," Mason whispered. "No, sweetheart. No." The CB giggle turned into whispering. Multiple children's whispers, tangled together, overlapping and dissolving like waves of breath. He slammed his palm onto the steering wheel. "Get away from me!" The tunnel constricted. Hundreds of lights tightened around the truck, spinning faster, so bright he had to squint through tears. The road blurred into streaks of white. Mason lost all sense of distance, depth, direction. The steering wheel jerked as if gripped by invisible hands. The truck swerved toward the guardrail. "No, no, 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 stop!" He fought back, muscles burning, but the wheel slipped again, turning on its own. The orbs pressed closer to the windshield. More silhouettes took shape inside them. 3 children. A mother. 2 brothers. A baby wrapped in a blanket. All staring. All pointing down. The CB burst with a single phrase whispered in a fractured chorus of young voices. "Down here." The truck slammed against the guardrail. Metal screamed. The right wheels lifted half a foot off the ground. The cliff yawned below, a black void. Mason braced for the fall. Then everything went still. No noise. No lights. No whispers. Just silence. He blinked, heart hammering. The truck was parked neatly on the roadside. Engine off. Hazard lights blinking. He didn't remember stopping. Didn't remember turning the wheel. Didn't remember slamming the brakes. He just was. Mason breathed hard, hands shaking violently. He pushed open the door and stepped out into the cold desert night. The orbs were gone. But the cliff. Down the slope, half hidden by rocks and decades of shifting sediment, something glinted. Mason grabbed his flashlight, leaned over the guardrail, and squinted. Metal. Bent. Crushed. Old. He climbed cautiously down the embankment, boots scraping dirt and stone. As he approached the glint, his breath caught. A rusted automotive frame lay crushed against a boulder. Not a modern car. A 1940s family sedan. Inside it sat 5 skeletons. Small ones. Large ones. The positions matched the silhouettes he'd seen in the lights. A child's skull rested against a window frame. A second skeleton leaned over the first, as if still shielding it. A baby carrier lay half-buried beside the driver's seat. Mason stumbled backward. Oh God! But something else caught his eye. A single, fresh set of tiny footprints in the dust near the wreck. Child-sized. Barefoot. Leading upward. Ending halfway to the guardrail. Like the child had